Welcome to another episode. I'm so excited. I'm not even going to finish my intro because this person I'm talking to today doesn't even need an intro because she's so awesome. She is the female Neil deGrasse Tyson in my mind. Honestly, you're the Neil deGrasse Tyson. You're way more important than he is to me. Welcome,
Oh,
Dr. Cyrine Nehmé.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me for the second time. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to talk with you again. Now, I have some questions because now for people listening, you are an astrophysicist, am I right?
Yes, I have a PhD in astrophysics and I did a master's in astrophysics. And yes, I am an astrophysicist.
And if you listen to the previous episode that I had with her, it was like if you were trying to teach a baby astrophysics, because I was trying my best to comprehend, but in ways you're everything you were trying to explain to me was so fascinating and so interesting where I'm like, I see why you're so passionate about this craft because it's very, very interesting. I mean, the fact of like I was listening to this Joe Rogan podcast, and he was talking about the matter of how exoplanets, for instance, have become so popular now. It seems like they're in the spotlight. They're kind of trending in a way. And it brings up to the question of like how many people are still left in the past and how many people are headed towards the future when it comes to the idea of an exoplanet. I mean, just recently it was all this alien talk. Everything was aliens. They're going to release alien information. And people were like, there's no way. There's no way. I'm like, it has to be. They have the Goldilocks theory that there's a planet that might be too hot or a planet that's too cold, but there's one that's just right, just like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. So why would you think in this huge, giant, expanded universe that we would be the only essential life when there's other galaxies with planets just like Earth?
Well, I don't think that we are the only living being in this universe. Actually, there were a priest like several hundred years ago, Italian one. He was the first one who said that if God created those planets in the solar system, that I really believe that He created other here, and He was talking about the other worlds, and He was really He paid it from His body and His life because they burned Him,
Yeah, they burned him
and
to the
from
stake
things that
because they were like that means there has to be other versions of Christ, and they didn't like that idea of that. And that's what
yeah.
I'm this is where I'm talking about where me and you can agree on. We're like, that's insane. That even though that might have been back then, that still happens now where people refuse to believe science. They want to chalk up that it's some, we got into it about the astrological signs and stuff where it's like you don't realize. I get it. Not having a definitive answer is always kind of the best possible case to keep an open mind. But when there's science that's showing you these things and people are refusing to believe them and ruining other people's lives, it's insane how far they will go to
Mhm.
blind the truth when it's like, it should all be about the innovation of people, right? We should all be coming together and trying. That's the whole thing where I loved about aliens was the idea that we could all come together to understand this thing that we don't understand. And we're
Yeah.
still fighting. We're still not really sharing research. We're still coming in complications with things. There's still issues. And astrology has to be one of the most fascinating things, but it probably is the one science field of study that is under fire a lot because I don't think anybody realizes how bad we've really messed up our environment to where you can't see from air pollution. It all affects you being able to look and study the stars. Even Elon Musk shooting a Tesla into space that just creates more space junk where eventually you can't even see through that.
Yeah. Well, listen, I just took notes. If I really need to answer on this one sentence, I need 1 hour, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. So here we are going. I'm ready about, it's 6 episodes. Uh, Let me just continue just for the listeners and for your followers. Um, just to continue about the exoplanets. Well, in the research and in the science, people believe me, sometimes, and from our ancestors, they were really not able to understand very well the cosmos and the stars and how it works, the mechanics, the physics, the astrophysics of it. And they really imagine like 2,000 years ago, imagine that, or 1,500 years ago, when we had a thunderstorm or when they had an eclipse. They really, it was intriguing. It intriguing them. Then they really wanted to have an philosophical or a mystic explanation, like a mythology and a relation with people and with gods. Now we know everything about, well, everything. We know a lot about that. We just don't know not just the mechanical, the motion. We know the formation, how it is formed, and the I can say the revolution in planetary and exoplanetary medium, when we understood how a star is formed. So when we know that the space between stars, it's not empty, and there are a lot of stars other than ours, and it is just physical conditions that will collapse and that will create planets, some of them Jovian, like gases, and another are rockets, like Earth. Then we understood that those conditions that were available here for the solar system, they are everywhere. And this is when we started to think that, yes, it is possible. And it started with 1990s, for the latest 89, but we thought that those planets that they are out of our solar system, they have to be around like a sun like ours, because this was the only solar system that we knew. And this was the surprise. We discovered a planet, a Jovian planet, around a pulsar. Do you imagine what is a pulsar? It is a nuclear, multi-nuclear bomb that is emitting energy. It was scientifically, for the simulation and the theory that we did for our solar system, it was impossible. And then after, in the 95, we observed a planet with around a star like ours. And then after this, the instrumentation and the observation and the satellite observed thousands and thousands. And now we have more than 170 Earth-like planets. And moreover, we have like exoplanet solar system. So not just one star with one planet, we have one star or binary stars with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 planets. So yes, it's starting to show that maybe we're not alone. What are the odds, and why we are so we're not humble? Why we will be alone? So this is a duty to search if we're alone or not. So this is for the exoplanets.
Well, hold on. The best part
And
about this
yeah,
is going to go longer probably than an hour. I booked. I don't have anything after this because I knew this was going to be something we could talk about for a while. I was so ready for this because there's a lot to explain. But
yeah.
you said 170 new exoplanets or new planets like Earth that have been discovered now.
Mm. We
Okay.
have to, yeah.
Well, I'm about to say,
Sorry, just to be clear with the number, we have more than 4,000, several hundred extraterrestrial planets discovered from the Jovian, the gases, the Neptunian, the small, and we have some hundred planets like the Earth. Yes.
okay, so the some hundred planets like the Earth. Not even 10
Mm,
years ago, I remember Googling if there when I first learned about exoplanets or other planets and the Goldilocks theory. There we only had like four or five at that time. That was 10 years ago. To see that amazing transformation and that amount of study that has been come out now, where now we're discovering hundreds, it really kind of shows what the future is going to be like in 10, 15 years. And this is why I tell people when people are like, there's no such thing as aliens, there's no such thing as this, there's no such thing as we just found out, or what we were told, that there was water on the moon. And for the longest
mm,
time to people, that was the hardest thing for them to understand. I think, much like everybody out there, some misconceptions are they think there's a dark side of the moon. There is no dark dark side of the moon. There's a side that we can't see, but it's the same. It's the same illuminatedness, I would say, as the regular side that we do see. It's just the one that not facing us is why we call it the dark side. But for so many people, they thought there was this just line in the planet where it went completely dark where you couldn't see. And I'm like, this is why I'm saying no definitive answers on anything, because we're always learning, we're always striving, and this is what makes the human species so freaking fascinating.
This is the consciousness. This is the difference between other species. And I'm not saying that we are the best species on earth, but this is the difference. And the difference that you said is very true. Like 10 or 15 years ago, we had like 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 exoplanet discovered. But what was the difference? The difference was several satellites, and especially Kepler. Kepler was a satellite who searched for an exoplanets in a small square in our galaxy. And if you see the statistics, if you and the listeners and your followers will look at the statistics for Kepler, and you will see that after the data came and we study the statistics, we see that the number of the detection of exoplanets, well, doubled, tripled, and it's continuing now since 2014 until now, because we developed the technique, and from since the 90s, the 2000s, we have discovered, developed, elaborate new techniques to observe exoplanets. And we don't just need to observe and detect exoplanets. I really think, and I'm sure that you agree with me, that if we search for exoplanets, it is to see if it is habitable. And if we search for exoplanets, it's to see if there is life. So we detect exoplanets, and now we are characterizing them.
Trying to find which one would be more sustainable for maybe our species to survive, because it seems like on this earth
Well,
at least we're not going to be, the future of it's looking pretty grim when it comes to the concept of how we've been treating this planet.
I don't agree with you. I don't. I'm very well with science. We can never say never, but we characterize the exoplanets not just for us, because for the moment, all exoplanets that we are discovering are so far away from us. Even if we are traveling like with the light, the speed of light, we cannot arrive to the first exoplanet. I don't know, like 14 years, light years. But it is to see if they are already habitable, if there is life there, if it has the good niche, good bed, a good temperature, good water, as the life that we know. So we are searching for a planet that has the good temperature, the good insulation, the good pressure, the good formation of water, to see if it harbored life sometimes, or the good time of forming, because you know that life to develop, it needs time. So this is why we are searching. And yes, we are searching for extraterrestrial life. Yes, we are searching for aliens. And I wanted to emphasize on something. In science, we don't say believe. Well, when we say believe in science, is different than believing in religious. What is a scientific model? A scientific model is simple, accurate, repeatable, and can predict the future. Means that if you have the same parameter, you can repeat them, they give you the same answer. And if you change your variables, you can use your equation. So with our observations, with our models, we are being coherent. So yes, I think that I'm pretty convinced that we are going to find some kind of signature of life in the near future.
Wasn't there a, we couldn't even identify it as a comet or an asteroid, because I think what I learned from listening to that podcast episode I was telling you about was that a comet, the reason why it's called a comet and it has that rocket tail or that astral tail is because it also has ice onto a comet, which is slowly, as you see where they're having that kind of looks like an airplane flying in the air with the trail, that trail that you see in the sky, that little star, that's the ice that is falling off of it and going, which is how we categorize a comet and an asteroid. An asteroid is just a rock. rock. There's no ice onto it. But there was this giant thing that it starts with an O. I don't remember the name of it, but it was like a
Oumuamua.
yeah, a Oumuamua.
Oumuamua.
They
Oumuamua,
think
yeah.
that possibly, since they can't define that as an asteroid or a comet, that it could have been a sense of a message or something from another extraterrestrial life, which was what I was hearing as a theory. That makes a lot of sense considering for how long people would say that there's no such thing as alien life. And then now the government tells you they're going to release stuff about aliens, where it really kind of puts these people in a push or pull direction. But if there
Mm,
is extraterrestrial life, which is interesting, because I think much like the public or me, for instance, when we said exoplanets and you say something that's inhabitable or same conditions as Earth, they think that that's going to be our next home. But really, it's just a measure of testing to see if there's anything that could sustain life just like us based on what we know about what needs to be sustained for life: heat, water, air. So that's
yeah.
interesting to know that that's the real reason we're going out there looking for things, is to see if there is alien life out there. But who's to say that they wouldn't be so advanced, or we might come across something that may be under advanced, where it might be us discovering a species that doesn't know the existence or know these things. Because if you look at us in a couple thousand years, how far we've grown, we are trying to uncover where we're from. And this is where I'll poke holes at science, and I'll poke holes at religion, on the concept of, I think we're just figuring it out and nobody wants to meet halfway on anything. With religion, it's got to be like, explain the Big Bang. All right.
Mm,
We got one that we can't explain, but we're learning. Science is still
yeah.
getting stuff wrong and also getting stuff right, because it's always new information. There's always another perspectives, which is why I'm like, this idea that we're trying to, as a species, uncover ourselves and at the same time uncover what's out there. The only sense it makes is to find a conclusion that seems religious, or find a
Mm.
conclusion that seems so dramatic, because it's so vast and unexplainable. It's our heads trying to wrap around it. It's like if you told God or this deity, what is God? He's not going to be able to explain himself. We're trying to explain ourselves out of this vast information in different pool of directions, which is just fascinating to me.
Mm. I totally agree, and I can add something, that the research and science, they are from they are born from error and trial, and so and it's okay if we are wrong sometimes. This is how we go forward and we go further in our research, and it's okay if we say no, we don't know. If it's okay if we answer that yes, we don't have an answer. For example, you said the Big Bang. For the moment, we have some answers of the results of the Big Bang, the inflation. But what happens, the theory of the Big Bang does not explain why the Big Bang happened and what was before the Big Bang. The theory, the simulation, the physics, the equation, the sustainability, the accuracy, the repeatability explain what happened after the expansion and the inflation. So when physicists now, you can ask them, they say, I don't know. Astrophysicists, cosmologists, I don't know what happened before. We have this theory, maybe that, and this is science. But there is a very common error, in my humble opinion, in with people, and I don't blame them, is when they try to explain science with the religion and religion with science. I don't think that they are against each other, and neither I think that can explain each other. They are, if I may say, that they are two parallel where it's a positive schizophrenia, if I can say it.
Yeah.
So they are two parallel worlds. They can look at each other, say hi, but they never join. So neither one explain one, and they are not in competition. I mean, because when you believe in something, every scientific proof will fall. You cannot argue with someone who believes in something. If I don't know if you understand what I'm
I do.
saying.
I believe,
Mm,
sadly, I believe in everything on the concept of I don't think there's an answer to anything because it's the world is there's so many perspectives out here when it comes to the human mind or when it comes to people like the reason why I used the religion example was the exact reason of people go, well, how was the Big Bang created? Well, how could that
yes,
one small odd create all this amazing life? And I'm like, who's to say it was a good thing that happened? Who's to say it wasn't
yeah,
just an explosion that happened and somehow miraculously this is the best of the scenario where we evolved from that or we came from that?
absolutely.
But they don't want to ever side with that. They don't ever want to agree to that. They say, no, it's a creator, it's a thing. And I was like, you can't say that when you don't physically know. When you there's it's the best part
This
about
is
everything, in my
mm,
opinion, is the fact that we're always learning something new every single day when it comes to something as simple as washing your car to as simple or to as drastic as space.
when you go into that, for example, in the explosion of the Big Bang, one of the theory was the fluctuation of the emptiness, the fluctuation of the quantum emptiness. Explain to me that. The fluctuation of the quantum emptiness was the origin of the explosion of the Big Bang. Well, inflation. So listen, we there are things that we don't know. We have to agree that, for example, the quantum physics, it's so new 20, 30, 40 years at the age of the consciousness is really new in science. And uh, if you do quantum physics, I think that the first time I cried in my life because of the difficulty of things is in quantum physics. You cannot do quantum physics without doing philosophy. So there you see that there's something related to something, you know. I cannot explain it without going through it, and I will not go through it in this podcast. Maybe we will do another one for quantum physics. When
Okay.
you see the interaction of some element in the quantum and they are so distant but they are the same, you put an excitation to this one, he will react in the same thing and they are kilometers away, then you wonder what, why he reacted the other one on kilometers away. Anyway, this is one example.
Based on your studies, for instance, what do you see to be the most interesting about exoplanets, for instance? Like I know we last time we were talking about supernova or supernovae. Um,
Yeah.
the whole concept behind that as well and explaining that a little bit. But on the idea of how popular exoplanets have become and the idea that aliens have been down here, I've read the CIA document files. They're nothing that
Mm.
I thought it was going to be. They're very, very redacted. They're not very, I mean, hopeful when it comes to if you want to know if aliens exist. But when it comes to the concept of extraterrestrial life, I do think it's out there, but do you think that it's smart? Do you think that it's something like might have they've discovered us before we've discovered them? Because it makes me wonder if there's a being that can master space travel. We would be like ants to them, where we wouldn't even be really a concern.
Well, as usual, you have like five questions in one sentence. Well, to begin, if you are seeking for an answer in the file, CIA files, there's no answer. And this is what made John Ford have this Freedom Act, you know, Freedom and Information Act, signed them for the American. And because this was the blue book, no, there were three committee to study the UFOs and the unidentified flying object and the aerian object and in the seas object since the from the 54 to the 70s. And the people started to do a revolution in the USA because all the answer were not really logic. And this is when John Ford became, he was member of the few people minority. And when he became president, he made sign the Congress, the Freedom and Information Act. So because he wanted a revenge. And this is how we can have those files. But what is important now is to know when you don't have the observation just of the people, normal people, because there is in psychology something called the common hallucination, the mass hallucination. Now, when you have pilots, when you have several pilots in all over the world, when you have marine, I don't know how, sailors, they are seeing things with a speed abnormal, motion in the water without any waves or without any interaction or friction, and they are reporting this. Okay, I'm not saying that they are wrong or right, but what this will make me think, those are really good people, made studies, they were not hallucinating, and they reported. So if they came in the 50s or the 60s, those aliens, though, means that they are far way more developed than us, because to be able to come, they used a method of traveling that we don't know yet, unless they came from Mars or Jupiter or the moon. And we know that there is no spaceship on those planets, because with Voyager and several satellites, we mapped all the planets. And you know that we had this beautiful heart on Pluto. Pluto was not very well photographed. So we know there's nothing as smart persons or aliens or living on those planets. So if they came from another uh, um, extrasolar system, means that they are smarter than us. Now, if they are smarter than us, maybe they developed another language. So maybe they don't speak. Maybe I don't. Maybe they play with. But we don't know the physics, the whole physics yet. We have to agree. We have to be humble. 20, 30, 50 years ago, we were not able to detect the X rays. 70 years ago, we were not able to detect the infrared. So we are developing things. So if they came, if they are here, they are more way developed than us, of course.
Do you think that like in your belief in extraterrestrials, do you think that there's not just one, there's many? Because if we're looking at a bunch of, let's say, hundreds of planets or thousands of planets that might be
Mm,
sustainable for life or have conditions for life, then it would mean that there would probably be multiple different species of aliens, which is like my theory on like movies, for instance. Like movies have been using aliens for the longest time. Maybe it's just a way of conditioning to us to where if we ever came in contact with aliens, we might not freak out. You know what I mean? That's why they give you, hopefully, it's not the ones like in the movie Alien that like eat your face, but like one that's in human like structure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ones that like in human like structure. Cause I was listening to, I want to make sure I get this podcast name right because this guy really deserves the credit. I sent you the one that I was listening to with Avi
yeah,
Loeb. Well, there was another one
Louise, Louise,
ab-
yeah.
about a important um alien abduction story by Travis Walton, who has a personal abduction story that inspired the science fiction film Fire in the Sky. Now, hearing him talk about being abducted, even though I'm open minded so much, it was very, very hard because the way his pauses were, it was like you could just smell the BS, I would say, which I think
Mm,
people see that because that's more interesting seeing an abduction story than seeing something about an interview with the radio or with an astronomer or something.
science, yeah,
Yeah,
really.
which really sucks because if you listen to the astronomy type ones, the ones with actual research scientists, they're very, very fascinating, and you start to learn more about space. And I feel like when you like, for instance, remember that Instagram post you put up about staying humble, for instance. I
Mm,
think that comes with a lot that happens to do when you start figuring out how small you are in the world, in the grand scheme of things. And I feel like a issue with people nowadays is that we get so glorified in our heads where we're the most important thing and nobody else's problems matter, which is why when I look up at the stars at night, I like to examine that I'm this little small little speck on this little floating rock through space in a galaxy that I don't even can't even begin to think how far it expands out to as far as maybe we know if I did research or kept going out farther and farther. But how big is this whole thing? Are we not just one little marble in a giant scale pool or something? it's this sense that overwhelms you, at least overwhelms me, that makes me feel like, oh my God, like I'm so worried about myself when there's so many things that are going on around me that I have no clue are even happening. Asteroids that fly by Earth that just miss us, Mercury either protecting us or Venus, whichever one is the shield for Earth when it comes to their gravitational pull.
Jupiter.
Yeah.
Jupiter is our protector, our big protector. You know
So,
that if we didn't have Jupiter, we would not be here.
so people worry so much about what they get on social media when it comes to likes, what they get into this push and pull. And I had messaged you about this because I had saw so many people during the time of when that one whatever apocalypse was happening, not apocalypse,
Mm,
solstice was happening that wouldn't happen again in 300 years or whatever. When
mm.
is it Newton? I think was the last time that same solstice happened around then. Um,
Yeah, it was the Great Conjunction, Saturn and Jupiter. It happened. The Great One happened every 400 years,
okay.
and it was the solstice also at
people
the
were
same time.
people were talking about how it was going to start affecting people's personalities and stuff like that. Now, I was thinking about it. I was like, to be open-minded, I have to look at this and I have to be like, okay, it would make sense that maybe a certain might change a condition or something. But then they really
Mm.
got crazy with it and they said that a certain race of people were going to get superpowers. And also at the same time, they were saying, depending on what month you were born, what sign you were under, your sign was going to change. And I was like, hang on a second. Being born in December and being born in September or being born in March, the middle of summer, whatever, is not going to make you so different in personality traits. That all comes from something else. The horoscope thing, like I said, I entertain it. It's fun, but it's not like the way
Yeah.
they go with it to a science. And the one person I have argued with about this was a person
Mm.
who studies horoscopes and does readings like that. She had messaged me during the solstice asking for, like, do you believe in this, and asking all these types of things. And I've had her on in the past. I said, I have no clue. I don't think that's what it is. And she blocked me. And I'm like, all right, I'm sorry, I don't have a definitive answer. I don't know. And I'm not going to say that I believe you because I need to see it myself. But if you're telling me that there's a group of people out there that are under the sign of a goat half mermaid thing and they somehow get a better level of intelligence based on a solstice, that's really hard for me to believe, like it's hard for me to get down with that.
See that you're very smart. Thank you, because you made it really very clear, and it is a great opening for me to talk about it. You said something very very interesting. Really, thank you. When you said that um, she blocked you or he blocked you, whatever the person blocked you. So this is the problem. There's a problem when in science. In science, there are rules, and when I say that astrology is not a science, I've been attacked. I'm attacked. I'm insulted. I have messages also in social media, because nowadays people are not going out and they are just living shielded by the computer or the tablet or whatever, and they can just insult people. And uh, um, what is science? Science is when it is you have statistics, you can prove it, and it is debatable. So the fact that the person blocked you, so why people insult and block? Because they don't have any arguments. They lost any all arguments. So let me tell you, if I may, about the astrology and the astronomy. Well, the problem, well, the thing with the astrologists is that at the beginning we started together. I mean, like 2,000 years, 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, it started all with the Babylonian, and then it was given to the Greek. And because the Greek was great empire, it gave after to the whole earth, and then the Roman and all the earth. And then they started with Ptolemy, and Ptolemy did this book. It was the Tetrabiblos. Tetrabiblos, Biblos, Biblos mean the book, and Tetra Quattro,
Yeah.
the Tetrabiblos. So, and they decided that. the astronomer will be astrologists. Why? Because they wanted the power and they were looking at the sky. And as we know, that they were not able to understand everything until Galileo Galilei observed the motion of the stars, observed that they are moons around Jupiter, Io, Ganymede, Callisto, Europa, Galilean moons. And he said, no, it's not mythologic, it's not mystic physics. Anyway, and then we separated the astronomy from astrology.
Well, there you
So
missed the biggest problem of where I have an issue with is when they put him on house arrest, all because of the factor of you don't believe in what they believed in.
the
I
hell
don't
you
like
said,
that.
yes. Yeah, me neither. But he was so smart uh, because he told them, he went to the court and he told them, okay, you want me to say that the Earth is the center of universe? Okay, um, puede se turne or something like that. But he told them, I will say whatever you want, but et pourtant elle tourne means that, but the Earth is not the center. It's turning around the sun. But you want me to say whatever you want, I will say. And
That's
this is how he took the money and continued his research.
that's my issue with whenever a problem, and same thing with like the person I said that blocked me. When it doesn't fit your narrative, it doesn't fit what you believe, it doesn't fit what you want, then you try and exclude that person, which is the biggest problem of why we're so resistant to change. I've heard when I
Mm.
was listening to Avi, what's his last name again? I don't want to mispronounce
I
it.
mean, Louis.
Lo,
Uh,
Lo. Well, when he was
Lo-
talking, he said his biggest issue was is that he doesn't have social media, so he's out of this realm of trying to people communicating with him. But he can't prove his work properly when all the people that are going against his work have social media accounts that are saying that it's wrong and it's wrong. Him talking about it, he said it's a factor of my research totally affects their research, everything they've published in books, everything, it's going to make everything look false. And I'm like,
mm,
here's the issue. When you're discovering something, it's like if me and you are building a TV, me and we're in different countries and you have the idea for a TV, I have the idea for a TV, but then you release the idea of a TV and now you're the first person to make a TV. I was on the process of doing it and now all my stuff's wrong. All my stuff, I'm not the first person to make a TV anymore. And that's how they think of it as a game. There has to be a winner and a loser. No, we're the humankind. We're the human species. We are working together. If somebody creates something that proves your stuff wrong, let's let's make a theory out of it then if you don't want to lose it. But the idea that we need to strive to success together will only happen when we come together and stop tearing each other apart.
mm. Well, this is how it used to be like a century ago and half a century. The great mathematician and physicists like Schrödinger, like Einstein, and other, I didn't they used to write letters and to really do the debates of the theory that are doing or the results. And if they don't agree, for example, someone wrote, I don't remember if it is Schrödinger or someone else, he wrote a letter to say that what the other did was wrong, and he put bad scent, bad perfume, very bad perfume, smelling like shit on the letter for his correspondent. He was scientist, but he debated the idea, telling him that I didn't like it, and the other one said that you're right, I did an error, etc. That why not? This is when you do science. You just collaborate in this small piece of you to help the humanity. So I totally agree with you. And as I said in the beginning, the we can think, we might think that the science and the scientists are so open-minded or are so not conservative, but they are really conservative. They imagine they worked like for 50 years on one only theory. Now there's someone who will come and will propose another one. First of all, they will refuse it. 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, they will refuse it because it will destroy all the theories that they did, a career, and it will take them time. They make them studies, the students, they make books of it, you know. And but it is changing. It's changing. It has to change because we are the age is changing, the years are changing, the concept of life. Look at the pandemic now. We are more. I think that we have to go to our in self more than the image, than what the show off, to think of really what the meaning, what the purpose. Anyway, if you want us to continue to astrology for the meaning of life,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry.
It's all good. I'm
Oh,
enjoying this conversation. I told you we were. Yeah, you got your. That's a nice
yeah,
coffee cup, by the way.
I love it. Yeah.
But I told you we were gonna. This is gonna be. I was something I'm passionate about. Is I'm passionate about people. But the issue is, I understand the concept of why it really really hurts if you spend 50 years to make a paper, and then someone proves that wrong with a thing. I had read that Albert Einstein, after he made E equals mc squared and that theory, he also came out with a couple of other things saying that black holes weren't real and all these other concepts. Where there was a group of scientists, I think up to 13 of them, that had come to him trying to prove his theory and make say everything he's ever created was wrong, where E equals mc squared would have been wrong. But
No.
even he said, why would you
Yes.
need 13 of them? Why would you need all these people to come against me? Is because it was going to affect their work as well. So you have to look at the grand scheme of things. Is it worth the amount of getting your name after a star? Is it worth getting your name in a published book or getting a Nobel Prize? Worth the expansiveness or the research or the advancement of the human race? Something that is so it's all of us. It's everything. I think when people say, "Wow, you made it to the moon," I don't look at it like you made it to the moon or America made it to the moon or whatever made it to the moon. I look at it like we made it to the moon. People made it to the moon. We turn everything into a competition, everything into a race. And I think that's an issue that
Mm.
stems with all of us. But I don't believe fucking being a Capricorn or a Taurus makes that happen. I think that's just an initial thing about people when you're coming from a place.
I think because you are Ophiuchus, this is why it happens. And you know that we don't let us start by why I have a problem with astrology. It's not because you are a Capricorn, and it's not because you are, a Scorpio or whatever. And it's not because you went to the moon. It is because, first of all, we don't have just 12, uh, how we say them, signs. Actually, we have something that is called the ecliptic, and the astrologists use it as the zodiac. Imagine that we have the sun here and the earth. So the ecliptic is a plane. Okay, so the plane where the sun rotates according, where we see the sun rotates according to the earth. So the astrologist put the earth here and the projection to the sun. And if you are here, let us see here the place of the sun, and you are the earth is here, you are born this day, this time, the sun is here. So they do a projection in this place in the sky. If there is a constellation called the Scorpion in the plane, you will be Scorpion. But what they didn't calculate and know that there is a 13th constellation that is called Ophiuchus, Serpentaire. So Ophiuchus is between Scorpion and I forgot the second, but it is from the 29th of November to the 18th of December.
That's
So
Sagittarius.
yeah, between Scorpion and Sagittarius.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sagittarius is in the beginning parts of December and the ending part of November.
So you see that I really don't know them by heart. Anyway, so the problem is that they decided to cut the ecliptic, so the plane, they decided to cut it into 12 squares. So if you take the 360 of a sphere and you take the plane, so a circle, okay, you do it like 360, you divide it by 12 months, 12, so it makes 30, 30, 30, 30. So they divided every constellation, they put it into a box of 30-degree, they called it sign. Is that clear enough?
Yes.
Okay, but there's a problem, because when you do this, you presume that your sky, the sun in your sky, will pass 30 days in each constellation, plus or minus, in each sign, which is wrong. Because, for example, the sun, the size of the constellation of the Scorpio is like 9 days. It's so small. The constellation of the Virgin is 45 days. So actually, there are more Virgin from the signs of Virgin than from Scorpio. So the Virgin constellation is so big, the Scorpion constellation is so small. But what did they do, the astrologists? They just cut them all the same size and they put the constellation. So their sky is different than us. So this is wrong. You might be, I don't know
And
what
also,
constellation.
the funny thing was recently with the amount of, like, I guess, leap years or whatever it is, where it seems like we're adding on a day or we're losing a day or something like that, because Christmas this year was on, like, I think it was a Thursday or something like that. But then the year before it was a Wednesday, and the year before that it was a Tuesday, and the year before that it was a Monday. And the reason why I started to notice this was on Snapchat, my phone lets me know my memories. So on Monday, I
Yeah,
got a memory saying from 4 years ago it was Christmas, and then on Tuesday I got a memory saying from 3 years ago it was Christmas, because it's always my traditional shrimp picture I put up, put a little picture of
yeah,
eating shrimp. So I was like, okay, what does that mean? And now they're saying that now, even though when I was born, I was known as being a Capricorn because I'm born December 31st. So that was the Capricorn day. And I thought that was awesome because my brother's a Sagittarius. So he's born a little bit earlier in December. Then they tell
yeah.
me, now you're not a Capricorn anymore. You're now a Sagittarius. And I'm like, does that mean I have to look at a different horoscope? It doesn't make sense. You can't change it. It has to
Well,
be definitive if you're going to run with it like that.
well, look at the Sagittarius means that you're born in January, no?
That
It's
that's what it means now. It used to be Capricorn
yeah,
was that.
yes, yes. Okay, so this is the second point. So they are talking about, for example, if you are born in January, and they talk about the four elements. Everything in astrology is about symbols, okay? So they talk about water, earth, wind, and fire. So they talk about Sagittarius. Normally, Sagittarius, it has to be a water sign, no?
Yeah.
But it is an air sign. And they say that if someone is born in January, he will have a personality, he or she will have a personality that it is protective. But it doesn't work for the south of the planet. What if you are born in December or in January in Australia? You will be in the bikini welcoming Santa Claus with a drink.
It's just like when you get a like one of those fortune readings and the person goes, "You have a mother." And it's like, "Yeah, I do have a mother." I don't know how many people were reading their horoscope and they were like, "Apparently I like fire." Well, you know what? All those times I had a fireplace in my house, I guess I must like I'm a Taurus. It's like you're
Yeah.
they're not telling you, they're just suggesting things and you're running with it because you think it's this thing that
Yes.
it's not. It doesn't really make a whole as fascinating as it is. It's interesting. I like
And
the symbolicness behind it, but it's not that's not you can't run with that. You can't run with that.
they tried for several years to really to find an interaction of the physical interaction, the gravitation interaction of the planet and the and the sun on us. But now they are just taking into consideration the position of the date of birth. And they are saying that it is very important, the position. And to prove that it's not a science, bunch of scientists, French and English, and I will tell you the names just to, if someone of your followers want to read, they did several research. They took 2,000 twins. So they say, as the astrologist said, that it is very important to be you will have the same features, the same thinking, the same traits, psychological traits, or your future, your destiny, if you are born at the position, okay? And they took the 2,000 twins born with a week of difference. Imagine from Monday to Sunday, 2,000 twins, and they studied couple twins, a different 1 hour. They took one girl and one other. The maximum difference will be 7 days, and the positions will be quietly the same. They didn't find, psychologists, they didn't find any trait, any destiny that they are common with the 2000 twins. And they ended up by saying that the genetics plays more roles than the position of the stars when you are born, and the sociology, how where you learn, what you do, and other things. And you have two other studies that were made to confirm your saying. They made by Michel Coquelin, and a professor was called Dean, and the name Geoffrey Dean. So Michel Coquelin, what he did, he's a French scientist. He took one horoscope from someone who is someone who killed a serial killer. Okay, so he talked to an astrologist. She made, or he made, a horoscope for that serial killer, and he took it. He made it. He made 150% read it. He made to be read by 150%, and 94% of those 150 found that it can correspond to what happened on their week, on their past week. 95%. And the Geoffrey Dean took 22 subjects, 22%. And I know I was thinking that 22 is not enough, but anyway, it can give you a trend. He took 22 subjects, and what did he do? He took their horoscope and he changed, he inversed everything. For example, if I tell you you will have money this week, next last week you were so sad, I inverse. I will write in your horoscope, last week you were so happy, moment so happy, and you will lose money this week. And 95% of those 22% found that yes, that can explain their last week. So, conclusion, you can say BS in your horoscope in a general way. Everyone psychologically, and the brain will work in a way to find something that relate to his life. Who will not cry in a 1 week? Who will not dance in a day? Who will not smile? Who will not pay? Who will not, you know?
So kind of
And
creating
and
like an illusion of optimism with people. If you put a fortune or you put a
yeah,
horoscope in there where they read it and they start to kind of will it like, oh, this is what my horoscope said. If you start believing it that way, you trick your mind into thinking that. It's
yeah,
interesting you said that about the serial killer thing because there's a show called The Orville. It's a Hulu, you can find it, but it's made by the guy who makes Family Guy, and it's about basically a parody of Star Trek in space. But they go to this planet
okay,
where these people have not discovered space travel yet, and
mhm,
they go, "When were you born?" And everybody's saying their birth dates, and then someone says they were born in like September or something like that, and they lock that person down and put them in concentration camps. And as they're in these concentration camps, what they all started realizing was everybody in this camp was born in September because these people had believed that that meant your sign was the sign that you were going to be a killer, so they would just lock you away. So it's crazy to see how like there might be an alternate, like I'm pro alternate dimensions. I think that there's a place just like Earth with uh with a me and you where it might be a slight difference or it might be something like that. I like to think of that theory. I haven't seen any evidence towards it, but I like to think about it. But to think that there's just these alternate timelines where we could have zigged or zagged compared to where we're at now, like just a small bit of conclusion of what information could never be found out. Imagine if Galileo was never born and nobody ever took the time to research that and we were still thinking we were the center of the universe. That boggles my mind.
it will never. It will never happen, because if it was not Galileo, it could have been Galilei. It would have been Newton. It would have been, because the the research and the development is like an heritage. Um, Thank you so much, because you gave me something I forgot to tell you about it. Thank you so much. Actually, Hipparchus, 150 years before Jesus Christ, had discovered that the rotation of the earth is not something fixed, means that we have the precision of the equinoxes. I explain, the earth does not rotate as a ball around an axe. It rotates like a, a toupee, how we say it in English. the thing that in the movie Inception that relates. Oh, I forgot. It rotates like this, like a cone.
Yeah, okay. Like
Uh,
in a circle, like a gyro?
uh, yeah. So the axis of our planet rotates like this. So it's not like that.
Yeah, it's spinning.
So
It's doing both. Technically, it's
it's
going around and spinning as well.
yes, yes. So it's not rotating like this. It's rotating like that. So and this is called the precession of the equinoxes. It's because of the attraction of the moon on the surface of the water and the tidal interaction between them. So, after several years, our sky is not the same. So, every explanation, and this was discovered by Hipparchus. This is why Ptolemy found this easy way to cut the sky without taking into consideration the precision of the Earth that nowadays Polaris is our polar star. If you want to see the poles, you look at Polaris. But in 20,000 years ago, 15,000 years ago, Vega will be our northern star because the sky would have changed. So as Hipparchus discovered this minus 150 before Jesus Christ, oops.
After technical difficulties, we're back. Now the sky changing. You said that the star would change. Polaris.
Yeah, we have Polaris now to search for the north, and because of the precession of the equinoxes, Vega will be on the north to search the north.
So is it kind of like when you go into space and you're in a spaceship, for instance? People think of it like it's not like Earth. There's not an up or a down. So if you're coming at the planet, so this is the planet and you're coming at it, you could be coming at it like this, or you could be coming at it upside down because there is no up and down in space. So the fact that we've been rotating and doing that spin for so long, where our planet, our sky has changed because of the fact there is no up and down. It's just the whole planet's turning. So it's us just going through a cycle, kind of.
Well, the up and down are just defined by the gravity.
Okay.
So every object that have a certain mass uh, equal or bigger than a certain mass will be rotating and will have a spherical shape. Every spherical shape will attract will attract you to it. Okay, so your up will be down if you are north or south. So there's no up and down, and this is why Oumuamua, the asteroid that is longitudinal, it was very weird because for the moment, no physical model and simulation can explain this shape of asteroid. Normally, asteroid is kind of rocky or circular, of circulish, but this Oumuamua is kind of a spaceship. This is why the one of the theory is that is an alien spaceship. So the up and down is so relative because of the attraction. So for example, let me take this one for example, okay? So imagine that you are a magnet. This is a magnet. And if you are a small ant attracted by the magnet, this will be your down and you are up. But if you are attracted from here, this will be your up and this will be your down. And if you are here, this will be your down and here will be your up. So it's just the gravitational force effect. And I need to add just to finish to finish just to say two things about the horoscope. What is really bothering me is that they don't take into consideration the angles of the planets. They are saying that they take all the planets into consideration. They don't take the angle of the planets, the orbit of the planet, the surface orbit, the plane. For example, Pluto is 17 degrees. Others are 8 degrees. Some of the planets, they are not even taken into consideration. So they just put the planet as a line. So if they really want to to take into consideration the effect of the planets on us, they have to take the horizontal and the vertical effect. So it has to be X and Y. This is why I say always that it's not scientific. And there is a person who was in the Federation of the Astrologists in France. His name is Serge Brett Morel. I really wanted to cite him because he did a lot of books. He was an astrologist and he decided to stop because he really exposed the lies. And he said that from nothing, we create a full story of a human and we pretend that we play with the past, the future, the present, and the future of people. We write things using triangles, rectangular shapes, and mathematical equation, but with a subjective translation. And this is very important.
The theories of
This
time.
is the danger. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
A theory, B theory, and C theory.
They I can show you an equation. You can explain it however you want, whenever you want, and you can make an equation say something that it's not saying.
Well,
And
that's just because people are biased, and if you're biased towards something, or you're trying to find an objective that you're trying to accomplish, it's like playing a game. You're trying to win, and whichever you can sway it or turn it instead of giving the proper information to sway into your opinion. Yeah, that's why Neil deGrasse Tyson says he never debates anybody, because once you start debating, it just means who's a better talker, who's a better. He had a The funniest video of him is watching him in an interview on like David Letterman or something, where he had astrologer, or not an astrologer, one of those tarot card readers or those horoscope readers on there, and they were telling him all this stuff, and he goes, I'm not even going to, like, we're 10 seconds in, I'm not even going to try and prove to you, because you are just going to try and convince people it's just about who's being a better talker. It's not about the proper
yes,
information anymore.
yes, I totally agree with you and with him. Because I think that I am on this path. And people, this is why I told you that when someone will insult you, means that they lost every argument, every peaceful, scientific, calm, clear, logic argument. And this is what, not just on, not just on astrology. For example, you mentioned something about the shape of exoplanets, aliens, or extraterrestrial life. And even with scientists, how we define life and the entropy and what is a cell. And I can say that for every condition of an exoplanet, maybe the equilibrium is fine for a cell to be a different shape. Maybe they are not all like us. So there is a kind of equilibrium. And yes, to answer your question that I note, one of 120 questions that you asked.
I got a lot of
Is there any?
questions.
I know. It's okay. You're welcome. So it is possible. Just believe me that the universe and nature are so creative and have an imagination bigger and bigger and bigger than us. So we don't know everything yet, and we are lucky because we will be bored if we know
Yeah.
everything.
Do you
So
think that it's ever going to get to a point where we put aside all these wins and losses on who has the right information to come to a conclusion of trying just to make the species better, trying to find out, improve us to the peak point of excellence? I mean, I feel like we're a cake still in the oven, I would say. Obviously there's other flavors and stuff out there, but I believe we're not ready yet. I believe that we're not at our point, and I think a lot of people think that it's going to get worse, and it's going to get worse, and I'm like, no, I think this is like right before the horizon line of trying to find out what's beyond this to the next level. We've just been plateaued for so long.
I I love that it's a cake in the oven. I really love it. I love this image. Um, yes, I totally agree with you. And it's listen, uh, in my opinion, okay, you can agree and you cannot agree. The aim, the only aim and goal of a human is to be happy. Otherwise, there's no reason. And how you can be happy? You can be happy when you are in harmony. and how you will be in harmony. In harmony when your saying is in equilibrium with your thought and in your way of living. And how is that? Is when you develop yourself. Developing those 10 or 5 years showed us that development is not the money. Development is not just position. We saw the Italian example at the beginning of the pandemic of the bug, that they've been throwing all the money and the euros from the windows because it was not able to cure them, and they are so rich. We are on the verge of learning the meaning of really the essence of life. And we are body, mind, and soul. Whatever, so call it whatever you want, spirit, mechanism, conservation of energy, but it's like a computer. Take a computer, and it's the body. Okay, the program is what is going on, and the electricity is the spirit, is the soul. So if you take out the electricity of the computer will not work, but the electricity is still there. The electricity is not out, it's just your computer that is dead, or if you broke it. So it's, I think that we are, and we are part of the universe. And I cannot really, I cannot see how the universe is forming us, and we are forming the universe. So I don't see how we are not going into a certain harmony with the universe. Everything that we do has to reflect this. And I know that the last 200, 300 years, humanity arrived to kind of greedy, needy, and I think that we are on something very beautiful. I'm convinced.
I think that we lost our sense of sensitivity and caringness and empathy, I would say, for this
Empathy,
for
empathy.
and when you lose that connection of empathy, you start to become very disconnected from the things around you. And like it's when I was telling people like when I walk out and look at the stars or whatever, but taking in that nice cool air when it fills in my lungs and knowing that every day I truly miss out on that experience and really taking in time for yourself or understanding what's going on around you. There's the one thing ability I always ask people, what would you be afraid to lose? People talk about losing sight. People talk about losing smell. People talk about losing taste. I would be afraid to lose my sense of touch because what really brings me grounded to know that I'm on this earth is my sense of touch. Being able to feel objects around me lets me know I'm in this moment. How many times does anybody, people, really spend the time just analyzing this rubbing of the fingers or anything where it lets you know, oh my God, I can feel what that is. I can feel that this desk that's my computer's on is wood. We don't take in those things. We gloss over the smallest little details, these smallest little things, and that's what keeps us connected. And when you lose connection in something that is so simple and so close to you, you lose connection to others. You lose connection to the idea that everything starts to become an argument instead of a point of understanding, a sense of connectivity that we should all be striving towards. That's why there's theories like the global brain, that if you looked up from space and analyzed every single network frequency of everybody's brain, we would all be connected like one giant network. It's true. We are connected. My energy giving off to my neighbor or whatever, all this stuff is connected within us, and that's connected to a bigger whole, which is the earth. People say that's God. If that's God because it's a sense of
Yeah.
connection.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Um, y- I agree with you, but some people don't feel the touch. They don't like it. Some people are so touched by the hearing, by the the ears, and some people by the smell. When you were saying what you are afraid to lose, I didn't thought about myself. I thought that I'm afraid to lose people I love, my parents, my family, my nieces. Because even if I was like not able to move, or I don't smell, or I cannot touch, if they are here, love it is the answer.
Well, I meant like
It,
if you had to lose a sense, what would you lose? If you had to lose anything,
yes,
I would rather it affect me than affect everybody else. I think the
yes, of
question
course, yeah.
the question I usually say is if a giant entity, a Dr. Manhattan figure, one with superpowers, extraterrestrial comes down here and offers you $1 billion, but at the same
Mhm.
time, if I give you that $1 billion, someone on this planet has to die that you don't necessarily know. I think most of the population would probably say, I'll take the $1 billion. But here's the thing. At one point in my life, I would have taken the $1 billion. But once I've
Yeah,
understood how
I know.
precious a human life is, to see when
Yeah.
you hear people fight and fight, families that aren't talking over some stupid political
Yes,
bullshit, pardon my French,
exactly.
but it's the biggest disconcerting thing in my mind where even when that person blocked me, I was like, even if we're not agreeing or I'm not even disagreeing, I'm just not saying I don't know. It's this
Mm,
concept of how could you lose and cut off and get
mm,
so angry that you
mm.
harbor such hatred as to block people to
Hate, exactly, hatred. Yeah. With this social media now, because we are like social distancing, I'm seeing, for example, on Twitter, I decided I want to protect myself from every negativity. uh, if you give your opinion, you don't just answer, you don't answer to someone's tweet, you just give your opinion. There are people just insult you, and if you have another opinion, just share it. I'm not attacking you. So I decided to block and not to, for what?
Wait,
For
you're on
religion?
Twitter? You're on Twitter?
For yeah, yeah, I'm on
Yo, I gotta
Twitter.
follow you.
The,
I put up this
yeah,
post. I should have tagged you, and I was like, Twitter is worse than American Idol. In American Idol, you got
yeah.
3 judges in 5 minutes to prove yourself. On Twitter, you got a billion people and only 180 characters.
Dr. Cyrine Nehmé, DRCYNEHMEH.
Follow you right now.
Of course.
Mhm.
And I'm not, I don't know why there is this hate. They didn't get it yet that the hatred, it's not going anywhere.
Do you think it's a factor of people like we talked about? Like, I think people are really, really
Mm, mm,
hard to look inside of themselves because of the things they
mm.
might see. And I always say that the only enemy I've ever had in my life it is myself. The
Yeah,
only everything I've ever built up in my head that I was afraid to do was because of myself. I don't fear anybody, I don't hate anybody, but on the concept of our biggest enemy is ourselves because we keep us to strive to create greater or be better.
I really like what you said, because yesterday I have a live. I'm doing some episodes for the MENA region, and Dr. C in Hakat means that when Dr. C speaks about the mental health and in the MENA region, because the psychology is not very well treated here. They consider people are crazy if they talk about their problems, psychological problems. So I was saying, you said something about fear, and I said that fear is a very great weapon. You don't need to throw weapon on people, you just make them afraid. And this is why when we ignore the other, we are afraid of him, we just attack him without anything. We don't open our doors. It's because ignorance. When we ignore people, we are afraid and we put hatred. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Ignorance in some aspects is bliss when it comes to the concept of not knowing what else is out there. I've talked about from the start of this podcast to where I'm at now. I've a bit of spoiled myself with the amount of perspectives that go into my head, but I think it's needed because instead of people, I had someone ask me, what was my goal in life? What was my thing with doing this podcast or something? Was it to inspire people? And I said, no, my idea now is to understand, because once you can truly put yourself in a point where there is no I'm right, you're wrong scenario, and you can truly understand someone else's perspective, no matter how crazy it might be, you can truly set down the boundaries that are going to keep you from understanding more and becoming a better person. You've completely taken down these gates and these walls that we build. I mean, we build walls and houses and homes as a place of preservation or a place that we can call our house to keep us safe as shelter. But really, they're walls that are putting up boundaries and borders from people that we might want to connect with, people that we might not want
Yeah.
to let in.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I totally agree. And you know, um, there is a real mission. I said that we have to be happy, our first goal in life. And the ultimate thing, Buddha used to said that if we find what is our purpose and our mission in life, and this is the Graal, the summum, the ultimate, and then we will have the inner peace. And I wish and I hope that everyone that is watching us, listening to us, and hearing us will find his or her purpose in life and mission. Because uh, every person has a meaning for his life. But it's sad when people will say, what is the meaning of my life? I have to kill myself. I don't want to work and I'm really without any work. They trust faith in life. I'm not talking about religion. I'm not talking about faith, but the universe will give you if you give him.
I can't think of anything better to add on to that. That's beautiful. I mean, I'm so look, I studied my ass off for this podcast. I was so ready for this. I'm so happy we got it in the books. Um
Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak with you again. We're going to get you on more in this episode. Like I said, this year I'm having returning guests on because I like having the longer form, deeper chats. It's fun. We know we haven't talked in a while. It's great catching up and everything. Is there anything you want to promote, your Twitter, your Instagram, where people can find you, check out some of your work? I know you're on TV. I don't think I can give you that much publicity, but you're
Thank you.
you're perfect in my mind.
Thank you so much. Well, before promoting myself, I just want your followers and viewers to do a test. They take any horoscope for any date for any journal, and they let them read and let them think for a friend that it is his or her horoscope, and let them tell you what is the reaction. This is first, just to do an experiment, scientific experiment. And second, to finish, I would like to thank you so much. I've been really blessed and honored to for you to have me the second time. It's really, really, I've been talking about you here around me and I'm overwhelmed, positively overwhelmed. I am on Instagram, Dr. Cyrine, Nehme, Cyrine, and I'm on Twitter, same name, on YouTube channel, and it is for the MENA region. I wish if someone have a automatic translation to English, I would like to have it. And I'm on Facebook, Cyrine Nehmé. Thank you so much.
And I'll make sure I link everything in the description. And thank you for listening to this wonderful episode of Out of the Blank podcast.